Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are going to unpack the incredible story of artificial intelligence. It's a journey that takes us from really simple, hand-coded rules all the way to machines that can literally generate brand new ideas all on their own. At its core, this whole thing is a quest that's been going on for decades. It's really the story of trying to build a machine that can mirror what makes us so unique, our ability to think, to learn, and ultimately to create. So, you gotta ask, right? How in the world did we get from a basic calculator to a creative partner in just a handful of decades? It's kind of wild. Let's dive in and break down the key moments that got us here. Okay, so to really get a grip on this, you can basically break down the whole history of modern AI into four distinct ages. And what's cool is that each one builds directly on what came before it, learning from the successes and, yeah, also the failures. All right, let's rewind. Our journey kicks off back in the 60s with something called symbolic AI. This was like the very first real swing at creating machine intelligence, and the whole idea was super direct. People literally wrote out the intelligence by hand. So picture this. It's like you're creating this massive, super detailed rule book for a computer. Just endless lines of, if you see this, then do that. But if you see this other thing, do something else. I mean, for every single thing that could possibly happen, there had to be a specific rule. But, and this is a huge but, there's a massive problem with that. The real world, it's messy. It's complicated. It's totally unpredictable. You just can't write a rule for every single thing. So the second the system saw something new, something that wasn't in its rulebook, bam, it would just break. So that fragility, that brittleness meant they hit a wall. A new approach was absolutely necessary. And that led to a brilliant idea. Instead of programming every single rule, what if we could teach the machine to learn from experience? Just like we do. That one question, that single insight, is what kicked off the whole age of machine learning. But of course, this new era came with its own gigantic hurdle. It was this super tedious process called feature engineering. See, before a machine could even start learning, a human expert had to sit down and manually point out every single important characteristic, every feature in the data. And this gives you an idea of just how insane this was. Like, imagine you're trying to teach a computer what a cat looks like. You'd have to physically define and label all the features. The pointy ears, the whiskers, the tail, over and over again across thousands and thousands of pictures. It was this huge, slow, painful bottleneck. So, naturally, that led to the next big question. But what if the machine could figure out what's important all by itself? That question, right there, was the spark for the next great leap forward. And let me tell you, the answer changed everything. In that answer, it was deep learning. Now, this wasn't just one magic invention. It was more like a perfect storm, a powerful combination of three key things that all came together at exactly the right time, right around the early 2010s. Okay, so what were the three pillars? First, for the first time, we had these massive data sets. I mean, the entire internet, basically, for these things to learn from. Second, we finally had the horsepower to process all that data, thanks to powerful gaming GPUs from companies like NVIDIA. And third, we had the right algorithms ready to go, these things called artificial neural networks, which are actually kind of inspired by how our own brains work. And the results? Whoa, they were immediate and just dramatic. So in 2012, there's this big AI competition, and a new model using deep learning just completely demolishes the old records. The accuracy for recognizing images jumped from around 72% to over 84%, literally overnight. And it didn't stop. Just 2 years later, it was already at 96% accuracy. Unbelievable. This was it. This was the turning point. That whole tedious era of manual feature engineering, it was over. The bottleneck was gone. AI didn't need to be spoon-fed every little detail anymore. It could just look at raw data, pictures, text, whatever, and teach itself what patterns were important. It was starting to learn a lot more like a human. And that incredible new power, that ability to learn on its own, paved the way directly to the crazy era we're in right now, the age of creation. For most of us, this really exploded onto the scene in November 2022 with the launch of ChatGPT. So what's the magic behind this? Well, it's a whole new type of AI called a foundation model. See, all the previous AI models were trained to analyze or classify stuff that already existed, to recognize a cat in a photo. These new models, they're trained to generate new stuff, to create a brand new picture of a cat that has never ever existed before.
Okay, so what? Why is that such a big deal? Well, let's put it in practical terms. Before this whole generative revolution, if you wanted to build a really complex AI application, let's say one that could understand complicated medical documents, it could take a whole team of skilled people up to 2 full years of really hard work.
And today, with a pre-trained foundation model, you can build that exact same application in as little as 1 week. Think about that. The speed of development has been completely transformed. It's not just a step forward, it's a massive, seismic shift in what we can do and how fast we can do it. So that brings us right up to today. We've got this incredibly powerful new technology at our fingertips. But how do we actually use it? Well, generally speaking, there are two main ways you can interact with it. On one side, you have the user experience. This is probably what most of us are familiar with. You go to a website like ChatGPT, you type in a prompt, you get an answer. It's simple, it's direct, and it's super powerful. But then, on the other side, you've got the developers. They're using what are called APIs to build brand new apps and services with this AI technology baked right into the core. So, look, the really crucial point here is that this isn't just another little update. It's not just a slightly better version of what we had before. A lot of experts are saying this is the biggest technological revolution for humanity since the invention of the internet itself. I mean, think about that. It's poised to fundamentally change how we work, how we create, how we interact with information. Everything. And that really leaves us with one final, kind of mind-blowing question. The pace of change is just accelerating like crazy. If this is how much has changed in just the last couple of years, what in the world will the next 2 years bring? It's pretty staggering to think about. Thanks for joining us for this explainer.